Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. This is another sewing video about a couple of my recent makes. I say recent, I made these a while ago. It's a couple of skirts that I thought would be nice for summer, and then I had to wait a while for the fabric to arrive. So by the time that I made them, summer was kind of over, and then it's just taken me a while to make this video, and then I'm scheduling it in advance, so it's taken even longer for me to post the video. So this is just like ages after I've made them basically. But it is a couple of skirts. So the first one is this one, if I can find the front. It's always the problem with homemade clothes. Yeah, impossible to see, I know. So it is the Dominique Skirt, yes, from Liesl and Buttons, which I've made before in a blue chambray. This is obviously leopard print, and according to my notes, it's a viscose lawn, so it's drapey. That's what I've learnt. I ordered it from Fabric Godmother. I also ordered the fabric for the other skirt that I made from there as well. And it did take a while to arrive, so basically I think it just got lost in the post because it was like 2 weeks after they told me it dispatched, it still hadn't arrived. So I got back to them and they did immediately ship another order again, and it arrived like the next day or very, very soon afterwards. So that was really good. Unfortunately, I think because they had kind of rushed to replace the order, some of the fabric was cut a little bit messily, and the leopard print fabric, there's like a weird red stain on it that kind of looks like either ink or dye or something that I didn't notice till I washed the fabric. So I wasn't gonna send it back and try and get them to send it to me again because I thought that would just be a bit ridiculous. So I just had to work around it, and luckily it was fine. Like I had enough fabric to work around. The fabric itself is, I have to say, when I got it I was perhaps slightly disappointed that it didn't feel quite as nice or high quality as I thought it would, but I don't really know enough about fabric to know how you tell when something is high quality, if that makes sense. And I'm not really familiar with working with like a viscose, for example, because I've only just recently started paying attention to what fabric I'm actually using. Since wearing the skirt a few times, I actually do like it now. I think it does drape nicely, and it does feel really soft when I stroke myself. And it is very light and flowy, so I actually think I do like it. I think I was just being a bit weird. And it's leopard print, and I do love leopard print, even though boyfriend and many other people in my life do not like me wearing leopard print. Whatever. So it's the Dominique Skirt by Liesl and Buttons, which is one I made before. Like I said, when I made it before, I didn't put any pockets on it, and I did include the kind of sash belt thing, which I realised I just wasn't using. The sash is really long. I think it's just too long, so I did think if I was going to make it again I would make it shorter, but actually the loops for the belt on my other skirt have kind of come off and like frayed, and I just never wear the sash, so I thought, well, I'll just make it without the sash. But I did want to include a pocket, so it has just a patch pocket, which is really hard to see on camera, sorry. I kind of avoided doing patch pockets on the other one because I think patch pockets look a bit, I don't know, silly sometimes. And also I just thought if you put anything in the pocket when it's just a patch one, so just like stuck on top, it can kind of weigh down the skirt or whatever it is that you're making. But I decided to do it just to make it a little bit different from the one I made before. I just put one on. I suppose you could put as many on as you wanted to, really. One is all I really needed, and actually it's the perfect size for my phone, and it's been really, really handy, and it doesn't actually weigh the skirt down. So when I'm walking on my way to work and I'm listening to music, I can just put my phone in my pocket, especially when it was a little bit nicer and I wasn't wearing a coat, so I didn't necessarily have any other pockets. Now the weather has turned a little bit more rainy and hot. Actually yesterday was really sunny, and then today it's like pissing it down, but whatever. So now I am actually wearing a coat. It's not as crucial to have a pocket in my skirt, but it is just really handy to have pockets. We all know this. Women's clothes don't have pockets. It's very annoying. Anyway, the Liesl and Buttons patterns are really straightforward. The instructions are really good and clear, and there's a lot of colour photographs, which makes it really easy to follow. So I don't have any problems with that. In terms of the actual construction, I think because you cut the pieces on the bias, and because I was having to work around that weird red stain, perhaps a couple of the pieces were slightly not at 90 degrees, and there is some slight puckering on the side seam where I've pieced the pieces together, sewed the pieces together, and I don't know if that's because of perhaps the grain line was a little bit off when I was cutting the pieces out, or if it's actually when I was sewing it together, because the fabric has some stretch to it, which I didn't realise, and then when you cut it on the bias, it's got loads of stretch. So I think possibly I stretched out the pieces, or one of the pieces, when I was sewing them a little bit. I also have some puckering on the hem. You can't really see it, and it's just me, I can just sort of feel it. It's just a little bit not super flat, if that makes sense. And the hemline is not the straightest hem in the world, which is entirely my sewing and not the pattern. So I'm not entirely sure why this wasn't as smooth a finish as my last one, but I do like it, and it's just really super easy to wear. It has just elasticated waist, no fastenings, and it's just really straightforward and comfortable, and it comes down to below my knees, so it's very, you know, modest for a leopard print skirt, and so I wear it to work. I've worn it a couple of times to work. So that's the first one that I made, and then there's this one, which is backwards, here, which is a shorter skirt, so it's around knee length, and it's the Everyday Skirt by Liesl and Co. I just really wanted to try a different pattern company, try different patterns. I just kept making Tilly and the Buttons patterns. I just bought loads of their patterns, and they really are really easy, so I like them, but I just thought I need to kind of branch out a little bit. So this fabric is Atelier Brunette fabric, which I've heard a lot about on the interwebs as being quite fancy, and it certainly is very pretty. It's got kind of like, it's kind of a black colour, or a very, very dark grey, with white little dots, and then what I think are little pink petals, but every time I see them I think they're bananas, but they're not. I think they're supposed to be like petals, or just markings, really. So I think it's really pretty fabric. Again, I've worn this to work a bunch of times, and it's one of those that I can wear to work and wear not at work, and it's kind of appropriate for everything. The skirt has 2 pockets built into, just smashing my tea, built into the seams, so that's nice again to have pockets, but the problem with these ones is they're not huge pockets, but the opening for them is like quite big. So if I put my phone in this, for example, it will just fall out as I walk, and so there's limited things that I can put in these pockets without them falling out. So that's the kind of annoying thing again about women's clothing, is that when you do get a pocket, it's just not very usable or practical. If the opening was a little bit smaller, you might be able to put some stuff in it. I don't know that they'd be big enough really for a phone. Kind of are, but I think it would poke out, so it depends how secure you need it to be. So the design is, there's no fastenings again, it's elasticated waist, but it is only elasticated on the back, and it's 2 strips of thin elastic rather than 1 thick strip, and I don't know if that's supposed to make it a bit more comfortable. What I'm finding is the elastic is getting twisted round all the time, which doesn't really affect my comfort. It's just, I don't know, annoys me, and I like to have to flatten it out again. I made this in the wrong size. I made it in a medium. It's an American company, I think, or they have American sizes, but then they translate it into small, medium and large. So I went with medium foolishly, and I should have gone for small. So when it came out, it would have been too big. So I just made my elastic pieces much, much smaller than they should have been if I were following the medium guidelines, which did effectively take it in enough that now I can wear it and it fits. But the waistband at the front, so the non-elasticated part of the waistband, doesn't sit flush to my body. It kind of gapes a little bit, not like it's going to fall down, and not like it's really an issue, like anyone would really notice. It's just that when I look at it when I'm wearing it, it's just not super neat looking. Also the interfacing that I put in the waistband has, like, I think, come undone a little bit, and so it's lumpy basically, and I can iron it, but if it's kind of folded up inside and screwed up inside it, I'm just going to be ironing the folded, screwed up interfacing. So I think that also contributes to the fact that the waistband doesn't sit very well. It's not a major problem, it's just something that I probably just need to get better interfacing and apply it a little bit more securely. And then obviously if I make this again, make it in a smaller size, and I do want to make it again because I do really like this skirt. It's a really nice length, like it's not too short, but it's not, because I've got a few longer ones now, it's knee length, which is like a nice length. The pattern I found a little bit confusing to follow. Definitely not a Tilly and the Buttons pattern. You know, it's a different company, obviously. They have a different style, and they don't have colour photographs, which makes such a big difference. They just have black and white line drawings, which is very common, and obviously colour photographs are a lot more expensive to produce when you're making the booklets. This was actually a digital download, which I got because I was being impatient mainly, but also because it was cheaper. And I have a printer at home, so printing out the pattern pieces was fine, although I found it a little bit difficult to print them to scale, but that was because of my own, I think, printer software. But it is just something I suppose to bear in mind, that I didn't have an option to scale, and I just it came out as being about 95% the size I wanted it to be, or the size it was supposed to be, and then I had to just click all the buttons and all the options, and finally got it to print out at 100%, but I have no option to select what scale to print it out to, so all the digital downloads may be problematic as a result. My problem was trying to use a digital booklet for my instructions. Obviously I have them on my laptop. It's a PDF, but it's not, it's like an online PDF, so it opens it up in a web browser every time you open it up. So it was a little bit awkward to navigate at times. It kept I had to zoom in and make the text bigger so I could read it a bit more clearly. And then if I accidentally scrolled too much to the edge, it would go on to the next page, and I kept having to go back and forwards, and was losing my place in the instructions. That is not really the fault of the pattern makers, it's just something to bear in mind, I suppose, when I'm using these digital downloads, that they are a bit more difficult, and it's not the printing out part, it's actually for me reading the instructions. Part of the problem is that I like to have like YouTube or something on in the background, so I've got that on one side of my screen, and then I've got the instructions on the other, and then I've got my sewing machine in front of me, and then I'm there like trying to read tiny writing that, you know, my old eyes can't read anymore. So I didn't find the instructions as clear as other patterns that I've used. The drawings weren't that clear, but I was relying on the drawings because some of the text, I just didn't understand what they were on about. I can't honestly remember any lines now, to be honest, but I did struggle. And things with like the stitch length and things were all done in inches, so it told me to do stitch length of 1/16 of an inch or something. It's like, well, I don't have that as an option on my sewing machine. I have like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and that's not inches, that's just the numbers that it assigns. So I just guessed. You know, it worked out all right in the end. I figured it out, but it was just a bit frustrating for what is supposedly a relatively simple pattern. There's no fastenings, it's just elastic, it's pretty straightforward. It was probably more complicated and faffy than it needed to be. The fabric, like I said, was Atelier Brunette, and it was really nice, so I kind of want to buy more of their fabric, but it is a little bit pricey. This fabric is, from my notes, a viscose crepe. It was not, was it £9 per half metre. So I did get a few meters, because when I put my order in, I wasn't entirely sure what I wanted to make, and the Tilly and the Buttons Dominique skirt, you have to have like 2.5 meters because you've got it on the bias, so that ends up being kind of pricey. This didn't require as much fabric, but I did get a bit more than I needed in case I wanted to use this fabric to make that skirt, because I wasn't 100% decided, despite the hours and hours of research that I'd done. I still didn't know what I was doing, clearly. But also I kind of thought I could make a summer top out of the leftovers of this fabric, which I still can, except that it's not summer anymore. So I can make another top, but I don't have necessarily a top pattern that I want to use for this fabric. So as usual, I just have loads of fabric left over and I don't know what to do with it, so I need to stop doing that. But I have been really trying to only buy the fabric that it tells me that I need. I still always end up with too much. Anyway, this was a very rambly video, so I apologise. At some point I'm going to try and insert photographs because obviously it's impossible to see what this looks like. But I feel like I've rambled so much it'll be really difficult to insert them into this video, so somewhere there'll be pictures. I hope that you've liked the video. If you have, please give me a like or leave a comment if you have any thoughts. If you've used these patterns and you have any tips or anything, please leave a comment. And if you'd like to see more videos on sewing or crafts or planning, please do subscribe.